Now, today's guest, I've been fortunate enough to know for the last 5 years. He's truly one of the top professionals in his craft. He started out as the director of football nutrition at the University of South Carolina and has since moved to become the director of nutrition and wellness for the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. I'm so excited today to have our guest, Joey Blake.
All right, hey Joey, welcome to the show. It's so good to see you. It's been a couple months. How you doing?
I'm great, man. Glad to be here. Always good to talk to you. Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, but just kind of basking in some of that post Super Bowl glory.
Yeah, I've got stuff just scattered throughout my home, and just a little bit of a constant reminder for maybe another month or two before I really click forward. But yeah, all good things.
That's awesome. Now, hopefully you can celebrate that for more than just a month or two. That's quite the accomplishment, and I think especially that the NFL of all places really holds nutrition, up as like, hey, this is important, compared to a lot of the other professional sports. They invest in quality guys like you, and they have infrastructure for food and all that stuff. And so I think whenever we talk and you talk about all the things that you manage, I'm always like, oh my god, it's so much stuff. Like, you're not dealing with 13 players. Like, you have a huge roster, and you guys move through a lot of food.
Yeah, I think everybody, I think that's one of the positive things about social media is there's so much knowledge out there about nutrition, and that trickles down to front office, coaches, staff, and so I think it's really benefited nutrition as a profession, and more importantly, sports nutrition, or at least for me. But yeah, I think everybody realizes that you kind of compound interest with nutrition, and it's an asset over time to kind of have in your arsenal of tools that kind of go along with all the recovery modalities that are in play now, and how far strength and conditioning and athletic training have come to, really keep guys available. That's very, very different from years past where even if guys were playing, they weren't anywhere close to 100%. And, what we're able to do to get guys, call it back right as much as possible each week. I think nutrition, plays such an important role in all of that.
Yeah, we had Vicky Lasada, who's a kind of an international soccer star. Not kind of, she is a legitimate soccer legend on the show. And she was talking about how when she transitioned at one point in her career to a plant based diet, and thus was getting a lot more antioxidants, a lot more nutrients, was paying a lot more attention to her nutrition, because you can imagine switching to almost an exclusive vegetarian diet as a professional soccer player. Like, you got to focus on your calories and getting enough protein and such. But she talks about there was such a marked difference in her recovery and her reduction in being injury prone when nutrition became such a focus.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And, I always challenge guys that, maybe they haven't prioritized nutrition in the past is it's one of those things that you don't know until you know it.
Mm-hmm.
What's like the old like saying proverb that's like, you don't value health until you don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
One of those things is I don't think athletes or people in general really understand the value of nutrition until they invest in it. And then you start to realize that whatever your body's been operating at, you do a really good job of figuring out that, like, oh, this is my normal. Well, then when you invest in nutrition, you realize, like, wait, like, this is how I was feeling for years, but now I feel this good.
Yeah.
You just don't realize that our body is built to just be this, optimal functioning machine, until you start to kind of unlock all of its tools. And uh, nutrition, sleep, all of those things are just tools that can help you do that.
Yeah, it was probably maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago. I was sitting down, I was talking with a professional lacrosse player, and this guy's amazing. Like, kind of, he's amazing. And his diet was pretty good, but he's like, I've never really paid much attention to it. And so we started getting into developing a program, developing a plan. And I was like, man, like, you need to be ready. Like, now that you're dialing this part in, like, you're going to be able to take it to a whole other level from a recovery and a performance. And sometimes they'll play 2 games within 36 hours. And it's really incredible, and you don't appreciate it until you start paying attention and implementing it to exactly your point. And then you're like, wow, I could have been like this for all those years before. It's really great to see that light go off in people's heads.
100%. And I was really actually just having this conversation with one of our athletes today, and I kind of spin nutrition in a way that, look, we all have athletes or know people that, have a very poor diet and are able to function at a very, very high level.
Hmm.
We all know the guys that have the fast food diet or eat a bunch of candy and, look like Greek gods and, or the elite of the elite. But I think what I always try to tell guys is like, hey, like, genetically, you're going to have a prime for sure. Like, you're the 1% of the 1%, but nutrition is one of the tools that can help you stay in that prime as long as possible. I think, a lot of guys that, don't take care of themselves, don't sleep right, don't eat well for a long period of time, they're riding this high and their drop off is just very abrupt. And it's
Hmm.
just like, hey, you're running this tread on a tire and at some point there's no tread left. So like, how long can you keep that tread on a tire to where like you're operating here and that trickle down just isn't as quickly and you can stay as an elite player for a really long time?
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a great analogy too. It's so true. So speaking of talking to some of the guys that you work with, wanted to kick this off with what are two or three things that you find yourself constantly stressing time and time again with your athletes, like nutritionally? What are the kind of the reoccurring themes of things that you're always trying to get guys to do?
Yeah, I think my biggest one that I always go to is crock pot, not microwave, and that nutrition just isn't transactional. It's not A to B. I've adopted it, maybe that, and maybe kind of I've said that it's in the quantum realm. That there's so many different like things that are going on, and that it's not just, hey, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And I think that's why people struggle with nutrition so much, is that like it truly is like a consistent level of operating and doing the right things overall. And you just kind of have to let that time go on and build that interest up before you really start to understand and evaluate how you really feel. So consistency,
Yeah.
is as much as that is not a very attractive answer. It really is kind of the biggest thing that I can say that you just have to preach, week in, week out with our guys. And then honestly, like, sleep is so important, to keep in your same rhythm. And I know this
Hmm.
kind of beats the same drum of consistency, but what people are able to do when you get great sleep, I think is just so vital for not only athletes but for everybody. I think, everything people are able to do now, it can be hard and there's a lot to juggle, but if you're able to manage good sleep, that recovery that you get, the REM, deep sleep, the mental, the physical side of what you're able to do, is really important, especially for the athletes. When we talk about, that's primarily when you're doing all of your HGH regeneration and all of those things that we know sleep gives us. It's just so vital and can overcome a lot of things. Um, and then third is maximize recovery.
Hmm.
Your peak performance windows, make sure that you're always trying to get recovery in and around those times. Make sure that your training's truly working for you, not against you. Like, hey, let's stay anabolic. Let's never get in a state where we're breaking ourselves down. If you kind of do those three things, day in, day out, week in, week out, I think you're always going to have the results that you want from a training standpoint.
So I think that was really good. I want to kind of unpack some of those things from a consistency standpoint. Crockpots not microwaves is a great analogy as well. And I think part of it, and you hit on it, is that people have been conditioned to expect nutrition to be instant. Like they've come to be conditioned to expect it to be like this microwave, because it's lose X pounds in 4 days. It's accelerate muscle growth by 57% with one dose. It's like all this crazy instant stuff. And so, in order to let people truly appreciate that this whole thing with the human body, it takes time and consistency. You got to develop like a level of trust with them for them to say, like, okay, I'm basically going to ignore everything else I'm hearing and trust you for a while to reap these benefits.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Hey, I always say, like, why do people love caffeine? Because you can feel it. Like,
Yeah.
you feel caffeine going to work. That's why it's so popular. Like, there are very few things out there that are like that. All the other things out there that are like that are illegal.
Yeah.
We can't do them, at least from the legal sense of the word. But
Yes.
yeah, I think it's as simple as that, right? Like everything was just A to B and it would be real easy. I always tell guys, imagine if nutrition was A to B, and where like anytime you did something quote unquote bad or didn't do it, like imagine if you felt like your body's designed to break down, break down, break down, but somehow manage where you still feel okay or good. Imagine if it was the other way of like, well, hey, if I eat, you know, two good meals a day, like why don't I feel any different? Well, imagine if you ate two bad meals and you felt really bad. Like the fact that our body is able to overcome what we do to it is incredible.
That is, it's so good because no, you never think of it. You never think of it from the reverse. That is so. It's so on point. It's so true. Yeah, good
Yeah,
thing
no
that.
one wants to have glass half empty. Everybody always wants glass half full.
Yeah. So as a kind of we're talking about you and the organization, is there something that you guys do in nutrition and you think, you know what, we do this really well? Like I'm really proud of like how I know that, you said you work kind of solo. I was shocked to know that you don't have anybody like full time that works with you to with all you manage, but I know that you have a lot of teammates in the support system for the players. So when you look at your nutrition implementation for the team, what's something where you're like, we do this really well?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is I feel really great about our process in and around game day fuel and hydration. I think we do an unbelievable job, and that takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
Our strength conditioning and athletic training staff are kind of boots on the ground for me as I'm still back at the hotel and pregame meal. And we basically have individualized fueling and hydration plans for all of our guys, or most of our guys for sure. Um, and I just think we attack that really well. And I think the biggest thing that we want to do in and around game day is we never want nutrition to be an obstacle that someone has to overcome to, be at their call it peak physical best
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday. We want them to be able to trust their body, go out, perform, play fast, and never be on the sideline saying like, "Hey, I'm underfueled, I'm dehydrated, I'm cramped." Like, hey, if we can prevent all those things, zero missed time, guys feel great when they're out there. That's the ultimate goal. And knock on wood, I feel really great about our process that we have. And over the past couple of years, I think we've continued to refine that. And I think we knocked that out of the park.
That's awesome. And especially because I think if you're not familiar with the literature, you underappreciate how complicated hydration is. Like, because hydration's been dumbed down to drink eight ounce glasses of water a day and you're good. But when you start actually looking at all the variables that can come into play, activity, intensity, duration, ambient temperature, body size, like it's crazy. How do you even go about doing that? Because again, you're not taking care of a basketball team of 14 guys. Like you have a huge roster. And also, I think the interesting with football is everybody actually has very different needs physically. Like they perform very differently. Like the kicker versus an offensive lineman versus a cornerback versus a quarterback, right? They all do very different things physically. So they're going to have different fueling needs. But from a hydration perspective specifically, how do you even get started dialing in those things for all the players?
It's a great question, and talk to your athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a number of some setting weights to hydration to fueling, I think that was the biggest piece that nutrition professionals brought to professional athletics and collegiate athletics was we have time. That's our job to talk to the athletes about these things. So I think screening on the front end, right? It's, hey, do you have a history of cramping? Do you have a
Mm-hmm.
history like and most of the time like guys know where you're coming from with that. They understand you're trying to help and they'll tell you like, hey, yeah, like I don't feel good on game day. Yeah, but perfect. So now you have this time and it's like, hey, you're about to maybe you have a, high volume day in training camp or you're scrimmaging against another team. It's like, hey, let's use this opportunity. Let's put a process together and let's see how you feel. And no, like, and we've got guys like we don't. You hit the nail on the head, and I just don't think we appreciate it enough. But it's like the anxiety that also comes in and around game day. Like, hey, these guys spend hours and hours and hours for
Hmm.
a 2 hour window, which when then you really break that down into plays 6 seconds long, like it's not that much time. So
Yeah.
like to maximize every opportunity and what that creates week in and week out for 4 to 5 months a year, it's a lot of anxiety. And I think when it builds and builds and builds, sometimes you just don't have like, I will never understand that. I didn't play, but
Hmm.
I can ask the right questions to understand how can I help you? What do you feel like? How can we move around? Like, hey, I'm not hungry. Perfect. You don't have to eat anything. Let's go liquid. Let's do these things. Um, Create those conversations. But yeah, in and around hydration, I think that it starts with asking the athletes, figuring that out. Obviously, I think a lot of times, we do sweat testing so we can kind of figure out like, hey, do we have heavy sweat or heavy, salt crampers or sweaters,
Hmm.
excuse me.
Yep.
And then, using your eyes, right? It's like, hey, this guy's not sweating at all in the weight room, and this guy's profusely sweating. So it's like I think you kind of just have all this stuff tiered out and asking the appropriate questions. And then it's like, hey, let's track how much weight you lose during a practice. Hey, weigh in right before, weigh in right after. Let's see, hey, what's your hydration protocol after practice look like? To where like, hey, if a guy's getting just constantly dehydrated on a Wednesday practice, then a Thursday practice, then a Friday, and then maybe he's like, man, I'm really, really tired. I need to catch up on sleep on Saturday. And he's already going into Sunday in a dehydrated state. That's my
Yep.
fault. I
Yep.
didn't do a good enough job of assessing his needs, approaching his recovery. That's completely on me. I need to be asking those questions and making sure that he has that process defined. So I know I kind of threw out a lot of different things, but I think it starts and ends with, hey, are you able to identify any issues, develop a process, and then act on that process?
No, I think it's so good because we underestimate again the importance of what someone knows about their body. And I would say this to the people that are watching and listening. It's like what you know about your body. Like how often when people want to do something different with their health, they say, well, I'm going to start this diet. So they throw out everything they've ever done and they, pick up a book and they're like, I'm doing this. And like you have a lot of knowledge of your own body. Like you know what works, what doesn't work, what feels good, what doesn't, what foods don't agree with you. But people are so quick to discard all that and just blindly follow some protocol. So I think it's great. It's so spot on that your first approach is like talk to them, find out what happens to them historically because they've played a lot in their own body.
No question. And I think sometimes, we just, again, we just operate in this existence of like, oh, I'm doing this and this is what I do. And all
Yep.
of a sudden you ask a question and you're like, hey, how'd you feel after you did this? And they're like, wait, like, I didn't feel good. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to do something else then. But like, until you create that awareness of like, hey, how did you actually feel while you were doing this? Aside from like the strenuous activity that they may be like, hey, how did you actually feel going in? Like, yeah, you know what? Like, I felt kind of bloated out there. Perfect. Hey, we need to move your plan back a little bit. Let's see if we can get this digested a little bit more, adjust it. See if we can do more on the front end, do some electrolytes. Hey, let's move forward.
Hmm.
But until you ask that question, a lot of times, like how people are wired, it's just like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel.
Yep. No, yeah. The other thing I think you said was great, and this is just, it's so simple and it's like so cheap, is the weight test. That you just weigh yourself in your underwear before practice, weigh yourself in your underwear after practice, and see what the difference in your weight is. And because everybody has kind of a rhythm of if they drink or how much they drink innately through all of their years of athletics. And it really will tell you a lot. Like, hey, look, you're losing, 5, 6% of your body weight. Like, that's a huge problem. So, and then hydration. I think I always just say you got to remember take off the sweaty clothes after because
Yeah,
I had guys that would they weigh themselves in all their sweaty
they're
clothes.
weighing more.
They're like, yeah, I'm like I gained 2 pounds. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like you played for 4 hours. Like,
Yeah, yeah, you gotta get down into the skibs a little bit
yeah.
and get that. But no, sometimes it's the simple things that are the things that we overlook and that everybody can do. Yeah, if you go for a run, weigh yourself before and after. If it's a long run, and it's like, oh, I'm down 3 pounds, and I'm like, hey, I probably need to drink, somewhere in 50, 60 ounces of liquid to get that volume back. And then like, hey, I know I can kind of taste my sweat as I'm sweating. Where if it's
Hmm.
like, hey, I probably realize that I need some sort of sodium replacement here, and I think if you have to understand what you're listening for.
Yeah.
Your body will give you a lot of the answers, and utilize the tools that we have in place as something that's simple as a scale. We just have to create the awareness and actually, put that into motion.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, there's a lot of low tech tricks that work really, really well. Um, so I got one last question, and this actually might be the same answer as the first question. But what is the thing that you wish your players did more of?
Ooh, great question. That I can actually say on this
Yes.
podcast.
Yes, that
Um,
don't let us give any like Super Bowl champion secrets, because we're already
man,
trying to negotiate up your value at your next meeting.
yeah, like I wish I could give like I'm gonna give like a really like rose-colored glasses
Oh yeah.
answer, but
Go
we
for it.
really do like have a lot of really great guys, and I think that overall do a lot of great things. Um, but if I had to say one thing, um, man, I think probably. Yeah, I'm just gonna say consistency and take the cheap way out. I don't know that there's an answer. Like, no, we have a lot of really great guys who like invest in their bodies. Like, there's not one thing that I could sit here and say I wish we would do more of this.
Yep.
Overall, I think the culture that we have in and around recovery and training and football, that's just kind of like once everybody is kind of just one voice, one message around those things, like it's kind of hard not to at least somewhat operate within those, guardrails. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going to take the easy way out on this one and
All
just
right. Well,
say nothing.
you've been giving the dynamite answers the whole show, so we'll take the easy one is fine. And to be honest, like who couldn't be more consistent, right? Like I feel like everybody, we could all be more consistent. All right, so let's move in. I know you got some pistachios, and we're gonna move into the pistachio shelling challenge. Actually, show everybody the bag of pistachios that you happen to have.
Yeah, I don't just have normal pistachios
That's
here. I
right.
have the actual Friday Fuel Up with Dr. Mike
Officials.
pistachios.
That's a season
They're,
one official bag.
yeah, not only are they green because they're just incredible pistachios, but because they're made of money too. Just Dr. Mike
So
made
funny.
of money.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so rules are: I'm gonna put 30 seconds up on the screen. Shell as many pistachios as you can in 30 seconds. If you win, you get a year supply of pistachios. So this is a nice wrinkle. If you lose, I mean, I think you're a pretty popular guy, especially in California where they grow a majority of the pistachios. I think we might be able to get you a year supply. But even if you lose, but last show when I was doing, Scott Kelly was on, and I was like, look, if you lose, I was like, maybe I could probably get you a year supply. And he says, nope, I don't want them. If I lose, I don't want them. I was like, okay, all right, appreciate it,
That's
respect that.
probably why he's like, I don't know how many people have ever been to space, but he's one of those people because he's just wired different. So
Exactly. Yep. All right, I'm gonna go. Are you ready?
do you need the camera on these? How am I operating here?
No, because that's a
It's the
little
honor
hard.
system?
We'll go honor. You're a trustworthy guy, so we'll
For
go
sure.
honor system. And go. Speaking of Scott Kelly, he crushed me last time. I was like all high off Ty and Josh Allen, personal best.
Oh,
Scott
yeah,
Kelly,
no doubt.
Scott Kelly came through like literally out of this world.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to touch his number here. Not anywhere close.
9 seconds. 5 seconds. Time's up. Hands up. Time's up. All right. Count them. And if you got halves, those only count. You need 2 halves for that to count.
All right. 1, 2. Yeah, 18's a heck of a number.
Wait, you got 18?
No, is that what Scott got?
That's what Scott got, yeah.
Yeah, I got 15.
Oh, 15. I only got 13. Like 13 is respectable, but 15 is top notch. 15 is
Okay.
top
All right,
5%.
Maybe I'm
Um,
not quite an astronaut, but
no, no,
I'll
okay.
take
I
I'll
actually,
take the
I thought
dietitian.
13 would have been good enough, but I guess not. Okay,
I
so there
got
you go.
tiny little hands. I can get in there and break them up.
That's like I had Dallas Seavey, who's the Iditarod champion. He was on, and he was like, "Well, my hands are very smooth because I got this lotion that I'm always rubbing on the dog's feet." so, so yeah, we'll go whatever it takes to win.
I might use that one the next time someone tells me I have smooth hands. I was like, well, it's because of the lotion I rub on my dog's feet.
Yeah, right. Oh man. All right, awesome, Joey. Thank you. We'll get that year's supply of pistachios out to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always good to catch up and chat with you. But you were seriously giving gems to everybody. I think the things that you do in your process with the team are very applicable to just everyday folks looking to perform better or be healthier. So I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man. Always good catching up with you. Always happy to do it, man.